So generally speaking, I have to fly about once a month for work, which requires me to book a flight domestically here in the United States. And because American Airlines is the largest airline here in the US, that means that oftentimes the carrier of choice is American Airlines. Today I want to share with you guys 7 different ways that personally I would look for an American Airlines flight by utilizing my credit card points and miles transferred over to their partners. I'm going to show you guys this in real time so you can see exactly how to do it. All right, so just like the last 2 videos, I want to show you guys first what we're going to do to benchmark our flight service on American Airlines. And in this particular case, we want to use, once again, a one-way service because I've found that it is easier to look for flights on a one-way trip versus a round-trip flight just in terms of availability. We're going to look at a service from Austin to SFO departing on Friday. Reason being is, once again, one of the best ways to utilize your points and miles, especially domestically, to get good value is when flights are very expensive when you're close to departure, so within a couple days, right? So if we look, our first few options, we're not even going to consider Frontier. I don't know why this option is here because nobody's going to sit around for almost 24 whole hours traveling. That doesn't make sense. So we're going to consider the reasonable options here, which start on this Alaska Airlines flight for $424 for a one-way service on Friday. Once again, normally if you're booking, 2, 3, 4 weeks out and you can find a great deal on a cash price ticket, I would personally just do that because of the simplicity and it's a lot easier to do. I do value simplicity and not having to sit around looking for award tickets for hours on end. So this is what we're going to use as our benchmark, which once again means that we want to get better value than this $424 price for this flight that we would otherwise have to book if we have to be in San Francisco on Friday, July 12th, for this service, for whatever we're doing, whether it's work or pleasure or what have you. Now, of course, you have to have credit cards that earn points to be able to do this, and so I'm assuming we've already gotten to that part, which this little tracker that I've put together, it's kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different resources in terms of the point transfers. Basically, what you can do is just go to I personally have the Amex Platinum, the Amex Gold, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, the Venture X. Those are all cards that earn rewards that you can see in their portal what the values are. So this just combines all those. You can see it in one place, and I like to reference this when I'm looking for my award flights. So this is just to show you guys. I'm going to keep referencing this as we go through the video on these different options, and I'm probably going to have to log back into some of these as I show you guys the different choices here. So we now have our benchmark price for this flight, and we're going to look at our first option, which is, of course, natively in American Airlines. I think you guys should probably be aware that, excuse me, that the American Airlines service, which is basically if you're booking on American, Delta, or United, domestically for a flight, that you're going to be looking at dynamic pricing for whatever the service is, plus fees. And so you're probably going to get better value elsewhere. And in terms of transferring points, we're going to talk about that here in a second, which credit card points or values you can actually transfer over to American, which there's only one from the list that I have here. So same service, we're going to look at Austin to SFO on the 12th. And we just simply want to get a better value than this $424 flight that we see here. Okay, so if we're looking here, actually I didn't do this right. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we're looking at redeeming miles. You want to check redeem miles here and then do the same search. That way we see our results in points, or rather American Airlines miles that you can accrue. Now, of course, if you have an American Airlines co-branded credit card, that this can be a great way to utilize them because American Airlines services are oftentimes, well, they are always available on American Airlines because this is their native service. So I do want to point out that as I'm going to share through this video, all of the options I'm showing you guys are actually available flights. I'm not going to show you any options that you can hypothetically book for, oh, you can book this for 7,000 points. Well, if it's not available, it's not useful, right? Like the award seating, or just generally speaking, award tickets are only as good as they are available, and oftentimes they're not. And so realistically speaking, you guys should only be considering things that you might be able to actually find and not something that isn't available. So hopefully that makes sense, which is why I'm showing you guys this as like a real use case if I was booking a flight for myself, if this is available or not. So we'll see that the best option here for specifically on Friday, we could get there, with one stop. It's not nonstop, but there's one stop, get there 8:30 for 10,500 miles plus $5.60 in fees. That's a great value that personally, if I had the miles or a co-branded American Airlines credit card, I would go with this, because this is a quarter of the price you'd otherwise have to pay, in cash for a cash price ticket. So the equivalent flight, we can look at this exact same service, arriving 5 a.m. arriving at 8:38. If you just scroll down a little bit on Google Flights, you'll eventually find the flight here as well. Well, as you can tell, the prices get more expensive and the flights get worse, which is why they have them listed in this order. But I think you guys get the idea. If you have an American Airlines co-branded credit card, then that is a great way to use these miles. Now, you guys might be wondering, how would I be able to transfer my miles or points over to American Airlines to actually use it for this 10,500 point or 10,500 mile flight? Well, if we go back to our transfer partners and we highlight the American Airlines row here, we'll see that the problem is that they only allow point transfers from Bilt Rewards. Now, Bilt Rewards, of course, the Bilt Rewards credit card that's fairly new, not so new anymore, is a great program because they offer some of these, especially for the One World Alliance, which is what American Airlines is, in terms of a transfer partner, which no other credit card offers. So if you have the Bilt Rewards credit card, then that's great. This is a transfer partner option for you. But with Amex, Chase, and Capital One, unfortunately, they're not even Citi, doesn't have American Airlines as a partner. So you're going to have to look at other options, which I'm going to give you guys here in a second. I do want to share with you also, for the number 2 option is for American Airlines, or for Alaska Airlines. Alaska and American are going to have very similar search results, simply because you're looking natively on the carrier they're actually going to be branded as an Alaska Airlines flight. Sometimes American Airlines are serviced by Alaska, or rather Alaska Airlines are serviced by American, which is why you'll see the search results are very similar. And they're going to be the same in terms of the dynamic pricing for it. And so oftentimes you can either get really good value or not so great value depending on when you're traveling. So do the same thing again here. You want to use miles, you want to check on use miles, and then the same date, travel, find flights. So this is, again, now we're on Alaska Airlines. The interface looks very similar to American for obvious reasons. So for Friday, July 12th, which is the same that we saw here, it's actually a lot worse. So at the top, it summarizes that the best value is 17,500 points or miles. So if you have an Alaska co-branded credit card, then great. Especially if you live in the Pacific Northwest, anywhere on the West Coast. Alaska services basically anywhere up and down the West Coast, which is great. And you can oftentimes find very good cash price values on Alaska. And so that's also a great way to earn miles on Alaska, which can be very valuable, especially when we're talking about international use cases and things like that. But for the purpose of this video, unfortunately, the best value is 17,500 miles, which at a 1-to-1 transfer ratio, if we look back here at our chart, it's once again the same transfer partners, well, only being one, which is Bilt. At a 1-to-1 ratio, we're looking at $175 plus $6 in fees, so $181. That's okay value, but still less than half of what you'd have to pay in cash for $400 plus for a cash price ticket for a flight on Friday, right? I think this is the beauty of utilizing points and miles, at least personally. If you don't know exactly where you're going to be in a month or in 2 months, and you have to book travel literally a couple days before you can use your points and miles and still get decent value instead of having to pay $400 or $500 out of pocket. So the next option I want to share with you guys is with Chase. Okay, so if you have a Chase credit card, which here on our tracker, which would be anything here under Chase Ultimate Rewards, you see that all these transfer partners are here. Now, for Chase, this is applicable to any airline in the United States, whether you're traveling on American, Delta, or United, doesn't matter. It's going to be the same that I'm going to share with you guys every time, because you can get very good value, especially for shorter flights like this, on Chase's travel portal. So once you're logged in, you want to click on Ultimate Rewards like I just did. And under travel, you want to book travel, not transfer to partners. And you get pretty outsized value by having your value bonus with having either Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is a 1.5x on all your points, or the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which is a 1.25 value. So both of those are great. And this was the search I did earlier. And I'll show you guys, once again, if you're not aware already, part of the value of having one of those Chase credit cards is that, let's say, so this is the same service we saw on Google Flights, $424. But if we go down here to the corner, we'll see that it's 28,000 points for the $424 flight. So if you do the math, once again, you're getting a 33% discount or 1.5x on your point value. Well, personally, I'm getting that because I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And so if you guys want a valuation of the card and whether or not that's worth it, I think in terms of just utilizing their points on their portal makes it very good value that would be hard to beat. Of course, this is, $282 in cash if we're just considering like point value. I mean, Chase points are worth even more than that if you transfer them. But that is something to consider, that this is an option if you have a Chase credit card. So I think that's enough about that. You guys get the idea. If you have a Chase credit card, definitely check the Chase portal first before you go to these different transfer partners. Now, the next one we want to talk about, this says fly with Spirit, but never fly Spirit, okay? Those ultra low cost airlines, I do not recommend. So the next option is Qantas, which is an international carrier. Before we jump into this, I'm gonna just show you guys here on the spreadsheet. So Qantas frequent flyer, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I'm sure I'm gonna get dogged in the comment section by all you credit card gurus that are always in the comment section. But Qantas accepts both Amex and Capital One, as well as Citi, which is great. So they accept most of the major, credit card currencies in terms of their points and miles, which is a good thing. If you have Chase, you could just use what we just talked about in terms of the travel portal. But if you don't have a Chase card and you have Amex or Capital One, this could be an option for you. So if we do the same search, which is AUS, the airport code to SFO on Friday, July 12th, we'll see that we want to make sure rewards here is checked. Otherwise, we're going to see flights that don't work. So we're going to search flights. I will say Qantas has a pretty good website user interface. This is fairly user-friendly and is easy on the brain. So I am personally enjoying this so far. And I'm going to enjoy it even more if I book this price ticket, this 17,800 point service here, which is it's about 18,000, which is pretty good value. And if you guys are aware of how international services work for like first class tickets and things like that, Qantas is a great way to search for One World Alliance first class services, which I'm going to talk about in another video because that's not what this is about. But so far, I do believe besides American, which is hard to transfer to, this is the best option, right? So of the cards that I have, we've only talked about, this is our fourth option here in this video. This is probably what I would go with if, this is where we're at in our search. Nothing else is available, right? So once again, there is availability, which is not always going to be the case. If you do a search and it says, no flights are available, then tough luck. But I've done some of the the background research for you guys here, at least in terms of this use case. And so these are things that actually work. Obviously I'm showing you guys that this is real. So I'm not just saying that hypothetically you could get a flight on Qantas for or an American flight on Qantas for 12,500. This is not what that is. This is like real time. This is exactly what I would be paying for this service on this date to make that happen. So Qantas, great option. Once again, can transfer the points from Amex, the miles from Capital One, and the Citi points as well for this redemption, which is looking like it's pretty good value. So around all these dates, it's the same price, which is great because we're looking at literally a service in 2 days that would be, pretty solid. So the fifth one, I believe we're on our fifth option here. is going to be British Airways Avios points. Now, British Airways is great because it allows transfers from the three big ones, which are Amex, Chase, and Capital One. The problem with Avios points, which personally I'm not a big fan, at least using them for domestic flights, I would just book in cash if this is the only thing you can use. But they're not only does their user interface kind of suck, that should not be your criteria for booking flights. It should be value based, but that's something that I just care about in terms of simplicity. If my blood pressure is raised, if my blood pressure is raised by booking flights and using my points, it's not worth it. Okay, just use book it in cash at that point, right? But the problem is that British Airways charges by segment, and so what I mean by that is if you have a nonstop flight, then great. Also, this is what we're looking for. If you have a nonstop flight, then they charge for that segment. But if we're flying, let's say from Austin to San Francisco, if there's a stopover or a layover in San Diego or LAX, you're going to have to pay for the segment to LAX and then LAX to SFO. So I'll show you guys what I mean if this website will work in terms of the pricing here, but I do want to make it clear that this is an option and sometimes there's good value if you're flying in a much shorter service on certain dates. So same dates, July 12th, economy class from Austin to SFO. And British Airways may be just as bad as Turkish, honestly, because you get this loading screen every time you click a button. So if I want to choose a different date to search, it's going to do the same thing and show me this loading screen, which I don't like. So there's flights available, which is great. Availability is the number one thing. If you go into Word Hacker, it's going to show you, like, hypothetically it would work. Like, that doesn't help anything. So if we click on this for economy for the first one, we'll see that it's 30,000 Avios. That's not a great deal. Like, if you're having to transfer your points and go through the hassle and you're paying what would be $300 in value on your points at a 1-to-1 transfer ratio, I personally don't think that's great value. So just want to show you guys, this is an option. It would be better value if our use case was LAX to SFO. But again, with such a short distance, with even dynamic price tickets, it may be cheaper to book it in cash. So British Airways, as of the making of this video, not the option I would choose, but this is how you would do it if you were to choose British Airways. The next one I want to talk about is Iberia, which hopefully I'm saying that right as well. But let me know in the comment section below if it's not. And if it is, like the video. I've never said that in one of my videos, so if you guys think that I'm saying it right. But we're gonna look at the same service, and all of these, I'm gonna make it clear, all of these airlines are in the One World Alliance. That's basically how I'm even procuring this list, right? That's how I do the search to see if these are even viable options. Because basically what it means is all of these options that we're looking at here today, we can book American flights on, even if they're not, in the US. If it's an international airline, as long as they're a partner in the alliance that you can transfer your points to, then great, because they allow you to redeem your points for award flights, or award tickets rather, on American Airlines. So Austin to SFO, July 12th, same thing. We're gonna look at this search so you guys can see this option as well. Yet another loading page. Now this website is maybe just as bad, if not worse, than Turkish, because you have to select, so this first option here, right? Operated by Alaska, great, because it's, actually, well, the first leg is operated by American. The second leg is operated by Alaska. If you have to click on economy for the first leg and then economy for the second leg if that's the service you want, which is, I guess, nice if you want to travel in business on the way there and then on the way back in coach, but that seems silly to me. Now, we'll see it's 28,000 Avios. And if you guys remember, British Airways also calls their currency Avios points. But nonetheless, this is better value than British Airways, at least thus far. And if we look at a different service, you have to click on this X here to select another flight, because this is basically like a checkout page now, to go back to your options. So this one has, a layover in Phoenix, You have to click on two economies to then get to, so this is 32,000 Avios, so this is probably not what I would go with. They're generally sorted by, I want to say like the best value as well as the duration in terms of like how long you have to sit around or how long you have to take to travel to get there. And then this third option, I stand corrected. So actually, so this is 32,000 Avios. The options here, you can basically select. So if you have a layover for your service, instead of flying the entire way in coach, I guess you can fly one part of that service, the first leg, in business or economy, and then choose whether it's economy or business on the second leg. So they're giving you a little bit more availability in terms of selecting flights by leg instead of the entire journey, which I guess could be a good thing if it's very difficult to find a flight on that particular date. But around 28,000 Avios is what we're looking at a 1-to-1 transfer ratio. That's $280. Not that much better than $400. And so we're going to look at our next option. The last one here, I actually did the search and I don't think there was an available flight. So I do have to caveat that there may not be a Cathay Pacific flight. But Cathay Pacific and KrisFlyer are probably my two favorite transfer partners to utilize to book, their respective alliances flights. So Cathay Pacific is, of course, in the One World Alliance. Here, as you'll see at the top, the little logo, and then KrisFlyer is for United for Star Alliance. But if we do this search, redeem flights, we can see if there's an option, if it'll let me. Probably gonna have to blur this part out or something so you guys see my phone number. But let's click on redeem flights, right? And then do the same search to redeem flights. And then we can see if there's any options for this service. Now, Cathay Pacific is great because they have standard award rates, which means that they use distance bands to determine their pricing. So you'll see that they show you all the options. They're basically showing you the forbidden snacks because you can't have these. This is what's not available anymore or they're sold out. But these are what otherwise you would be able to book if there was an award seat on any of these services. So here where it says there are no redemption seats available, that's where there'd be a button to purchase if they had one. But this is where, the people talking about hypothetically like 15,000 points, that's great value. It's $150 that Cathay Pacific also transfers over from Amex and Capital One, which is great, as well as Built-in City. So it's pretty much all of them except Chase, and gives you some flexibility there if you have an Amex product or a Capital One product. And so, what generally would be, I would say, one of the better options here, it just may not be available if you're booking in a few days. So as you do this more often, you'll get an idea for which carriers or rather which transfer partners allow you to book closer to the travel date of the date of departure. So for example, the ones we just looked at, for example, where was it? Qantas, they have availability just a couple days out, which is awesome. For Cathay, which is what I would probably go with if I was traveling a little bit further out, I think that this is what I would go with, of course, if the value is better than booking a flight on Qantas that otherwise isn't as good of a price, right? So because we're looking at availability here, and there is still nothing. Month of July, end of July. Let's see if there is anything. Maybe August, huh? Let's see. This is usually what I do before. Well, I did do this before making this video, so I don't spend all this time loading all these results for you guys. But so I didn't get that message on this one because there is an option here for, once again, 15,000 points, the Cathay Pacific Miles, Asia Miles, I think is what it's called, which is great. And this would be even really good value flying, on business or first, if there's availability for this particular day. Yeah, so there's no business availability. But for economy, 15,000 points or miles is about $150, which even booking a few weeks out, if it's cheaper than otherwise booking it in cash, then that would be a great option. So just to recap, for today's video, we talked about the options for traveling on American Airlines without necessarily having to transfer your points or miles to American in order to be able to still fly on an American service. So the options we talked about were, of course, first looking on American Airlines. If you have a Built Rewards product, that's great because you can transfer those to either American Airlines or Alaska Airlines. Then if you have a Chase product, of course, you have to check the Chase portal because that's going to give you pretty great value no matter when you're traveling, and it's always going to be available. Maybe just not the best price. And then in terms of traveling pretty close to the date of departure, Qantas was the best option here. So that is probably what I would go with after making this video. If I was to travel on Friday to utilize this service, that's the one I would choose because it's the one that's available for the best price. And I could transfer my points over from either Amex or Capital One, which once again, I've demonstrated in many videos. I'm not going to log into my account here, but the process is to transfer your points or miles over from Amex, let's say, to Qantas into your account, and then utilize those points or miles here on this portal once you select a flight and then you want to book the service. British Airways, Avios points, always an option that allows transfers from a number of different credit card partners, but doesn't have great value, at least in this instance, because they, again, charge by segment. And then we have Iberia, and then Cathay, which is what I would choose because they have the best value if I was booking further out. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what other, perhaps related content that you may want to see. This is, of course, not my day job, so I'm not always making these videos, but I do try to share with you guys kind of the tips that I have in terms of things that I would do myself that make sense in terms of getting value out of your points and miles for travel, because I think it's silly to spend $500 on a flight that otherwise you could get pretty good value on your hard-earned points that you don't have to pay for because you used them or you got them by spending money on other things. So appreciate you guys sticking around, and you guys have a great week. I'll see you guys in the next one.